on this webinar on ethical consideration in robotics, navigating the moral landscape. This event is jointly organized by IEEE-PSIT Student Branch, IEEE WIE-PSIT Affinity Group, IEEE Robotics Society PSIT Chapter, IEEE Computer Science PSIT, and Aryabhatta Club. In today's session, we will delve into the critical ethical dilemmas surrounding the robotics and its implication for the society. As we progress towards the increasingly automated world, the need to address these ethical consideration has never been more important. Now, I would like to ask Soumya to carry on the webinar. Soumya?
It is my pleasure to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Dr. Harivardhagini Subhadra, who is currently serving as a professor and head of Electronics and Instrumentation Engineering Department at CVR College of Engineering. Dr. Subhadra also holds the prestigious position of Chair of IEEE Women in Engineering Affinity Group, WIE-AG, Hyderabad section. Her exceptional expertise and leadership in the fields of electronics, instrumentation, and robotics have made her a highly respected figure in academia and industry alike. With her extensive knowledge and dedication to ethical innovation, Dr. Subhadra has been a guiding force in fostering awareness and dialogue in the ethical dimension of technology and its impact on society. We are truly honored to have her here with us today to share her insights on ethical consideration in robotics, navigating the moral landscape. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Harivardhagini Subhadra and let us commence this session.
Thank you. Soumya, and thank you, Shika, for the invite and for the wonderful introduction. So, I congratulate basically the students to join the session on a Sunday, because Sunday generally we close our books and we try to be away from professional work. But I heartily congratulate all the students who have joined, and of course, Aparna ma'am. Kudos to you too for motivating the students even on a Sunday, because if I try to keep a webinar on Sunday, generally the option would be at least on a Saturday night, please prepone it, ma'am. So that will be the suggestion. So congratulations to the entire team for listening, for joining this session. And I would like to go ahead with the presentation. So just let me know if my screen is visible like before.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's
Your screen is visible.
Yeah, so I think the PowerPoint mode is also on. So the topic of today's date, that is ethical consideration in robotics, navigating the moral landscape. So this one thing is a very important topic, because nowadays we all see that there is a lot of autonomous vehicles that is there. There are lots of there are lots of home appliances which are automated, and several things around us that is getting automated. Apart from getting automated, the next step that is happening around is they are making self decisions. So when a machine is having a capacity to think and decide, or to think and take a decision, then there comes into effect several ethical constraints, because ethics is something which refers to taking a decision whether it is right or wrong, whether it is favorable or unfavorable, and whether it is to ensure that it aligns with the human values and the societal norms. So missions, though they have the capacity to think, they rarely possess the what is meant by human values and what are the societal norms, unless otherwise they get continuously updated with the artificial intelligence or continuous mapping with several earlier instances. The ethical considerations involve privacy, then it involves safety, it also includes bias, it looks into transparency, accountancy, human oversight, the well-being, dignity, mainly human rights and freedoms. So there are several things that needs to be considered when we talk about the ethical considerations. And specifically when we talk about robotics, it gets involved with the automation industry, it is involved in the automobile industry. You have a lot of robotics nowadays in surgery, medical industry. When we just travel on the road, you see that there are several placards or holders that is there around the side of the roads, where which talks about robotic aided operation, minimal invasive surgery, robotic aided LASIK operation. So like this, we find that there are huge applications of robotics in automobile, automation, medical, and several other industries. So brief talk about what ethical considerations are required in this robotics can be just discussed now. And as introduced earlier, I am Dr. Harivardhagini, and currently I am holding the position of chair of the Women in Engineering of Hyderabad section. I also represent the IEEE-PSIT Women in Power events lead. Apart from that, I hold few other positions of being a member of the IAPT of India Council. I also am a member of the IEEE Women in Engineering Philanthropical Unit. So let me go with the introduction. What is robotics, why do you need to talk about robotics now? Robotics actually plays a very transformative role in several sectors. As I had earlier mentioned, it is involved into healthcare, it is involved into manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, and several domains. So, from performing complex surgeries and till automation production line, robots have its hands filled everywhere. Apart from this, when the integration grows, we need to address the ethical, social, and economic implications, which has become a very, very vital role. A simple example is, now if there is an automated car, a self-driving car, we have seen several videos on self-driving cars. We see that the cars just drive without a driver. That is called as a self-driving car. So several times it will be placed in a decision of whether if there is a sudden passenger that who's crossing the road without any the zebra crossing or the pedestrian crossing, if there is a sudden passenger who walks onto the road, it has to immediately take a decision whether it needs to apply brake suddenly, which will affect the passengers within the car and the cars that and the vehicles that is traveling outside it, or should it take a sudden turn and move a sudden small deviation and go, or if there is no other way, should it really hit the passenger? So this becomes a very logical decision, especially if a human is involved. Then the human will practically think and will be able to take a sustainable decision. But when it is a robot involved, it requires a great mapping of the technology, which will tend to decide what has to be the decision that is taken. So why do we talk about ethics in robots, or what is the need for ethics in robots? The main issues, as I had earlier said, I listed several considerations, of which the few main ones are the privacy, the safety, the accountability, and how fair it is able to make a decision. All these should help to prevent the misuse, and it should promote trust, basically, of how to ensure that the robot not only thinks about the societal well-being, but it should not affect the human rights or the values. So what are the basic principles that is present while we talk about the ethical considerations in a robot or in robotics? So it should be highly transparent. We have to have a clear idea or an understanding of how robots make the decision. it should be accountable. So whatever decisions the robot is making, it should be accounted for, it should be responsible, it should be every time documented for what decision, for what action a decision is taken. Because at the end, when a mapping is done or when a summarization happens, then we will know like how accountable if we know how accountable a robot is, then we will be able to predict what future reactions or what future actions it will be taking. We have to look into the privacy constraints, like how the personal data that is taken in by the robot is preserved or is stored. When I say about the home appliances, we all know that we have Alexa at home, we have a Google Home, we have our I would say wearables like smartwatches. All these keep on collecting data, and when the data is collected, where it is stored, is it given to a third party, can a third party access it? All these should be in the terms and conditions, that is in the private policy of the particular manufacturer. Bias mitigation, this is a very important topic, because this bias is being favorable to one section and unfavorable to the other, or being more preferred to one part of the section. So preventing discrimination in AI bias, become AI algorithm, is a very important part of how to mitigate the bias. And last but not the least, safety is a very important constraint, because at the end, we should ensure that the robots do not do any harm to the humans. At the end, robots are designed, or robotics field is designed to make humans' life easy. Instead, it should not harm the humans itself. So when a robotic machine, or when a robot is assisted by human, or when it is monitored and when it is guided by the human, you don't tend to cause much errors. But when the section of autonomous decision making occurs, then there is a huge possibility of errors, ethical constraints, safety, malfunctioning, things like that. So what is an autonomous system? And later we'll see what is meant by autonomous decision making and what affects the autonomous decision making. What is an autonomous system, especially in robotics? When the machines or the robots are capable of performing a task and taking decisions that is associated without any human intervention, then it is called as an autonomous system. So how does a machine do this, or how does a robotic instrument do it? It solely relies on the sensors. Sensors become the gateway of the information. Any information that is present around us should travel into the machine via sensors. Examples of sensors are proximity sensors to show how near an object is, optical sensors which helps to detect particular objects that is around us by the principle of optics. Then you will have IR sensors, we have UV sensors. Like this, there are several sensors that is available, which can be integrated into the robotic system depending upon our application. Are you subjecting it to a proximity sensor? Are you trying to detect, are there instruments beside us, or are there machines beside us? Are you trying to identify whether there is a fire surrounding the thing? In that case, then a fire sensor will be used, a smoke sensor will be used. So sensors form the vital first part, or the first, I would say, gateway of the instrument or of the mission, which allows the information and takes the information and gives it in a more comprehensible and understandable form. Followed by the sensor, you have the artificial intelligence, which is mapped into the system. So AI is a vast ocean. Depending on the application, you should select what type of algorithm you're selecting and what type of AI mechanism you're going to use in order to sustain and get stabilized with the environment, which can analyze the data and which can take a decision in real time. Before AI, earlier we had something called as fuzzy systems. So fuzzy systems had a series of rules where you try to map each and every condition, and based upon the condition, the output will be given. So neural networks and fuzzy combined together, and with several other considerations, the AI was developed. AI, machine learning, and with the help of data, the big giant of data big giant of data analytics, all clubbed together, we have a newly evolved artificial intelligence that has come out, which helps to make us or help the missions take the decisions in real time. So, what are the basic challenges that an autonomous decision making will come into? Basically, there are five challenges that gets affected. That affects, I would say, that affects in decision making of a robot. First one is a complex decision scenario when the rules are straightforward, but the scenario what actually the decision has to be taken is different. When there is a lack of human intuition, when there is a bias in the AI algorithm. I had already said that bias is like when it is unfair or when the outcomes are not proportional, then you call it as a bias in AI algorithm. When there is an accountability gap and when there is a need for ethical framework, all these serve as challenges for moral and ethical decision making in robots. So let us see what is complex decision scenario. So earlier when I had given an example of the car, I can say it as a life and death situation when there is an autonomous vehicle. So such decisions becomes a complex one. So this is the example which I had mentioned earlier, depicted here. When a self-driving car must decide whether it should protect its passengers or its pedestrian in an unavoidable accident. So that decision becomes very crucial because it is a machine that is making a decision, not a human who has the values of. There are some abstract values which cannot be embedded into a mission, or it's very difficult to embed it into a newly evolved mission. So such type of decisions when the mission has to take in a complex scenario, then it becomes a huge challenge. The second one that I was talking about, the lack of human intuition. Robots operates based mainly on the programmed rules and algorithms, so there is nothing called a moral reasoning, especially when there is a dilemma. So such things becomes a huge challenge while taking a decision. Talking about the bias is when there is a data in an algorithm, and when a data is trained continuously in the AI system, then a sort of bias arises when there is an ethical decision that needs to be taken, because the algorithm says different but the ethical action needs to be different. So when these two becomes contrary, there results a bias. So this can cause an unfair and a harmful outcome. This can affect definitely at least a certain group in a particular scenario. Accountability gap, as I had said in the earlier slides, accountability becomes a very, very, very important factor when you are talking about the decision making, because the decision of the robo ultimately should be highly responsible. If the responsibility is unclear, then the accountability has a gap, and this particular gap will tend to make people less responsible, or the manufacturer less responsible of how the harm is caused, or why the harm is caused. But if there is an accountability, then the manufacturer will definitely realize, or the user will definitely realize that they have the sole accountability of whatever actions the robotic machine or the robot does. Talking about the need for ethical frameworks. So there is a committee which always keeps framing the ethical rules or ethical, I would say, constraints that that will be giving clear guidelines and regulations as and when such challenges are encountered. So the ethical oversight should is essential to ensure that there is a proper decision making. So this was about the challenges that are faced while there is a autonomous decision making. Now let us look into a case study, one simple example which is elaborated over here to talk about the autonomous decision making. There are several self-driving cars and decision hierarchies in emergencies. Now let me take a scenario. We have a self-driving car which is generally having several decision making hierarchy, like sudden brake failure happens, or a sudden pedestrian crossing, or you have suddenly you find that there is a I mean, there is an uncalled for incident, a sudden accident that happens before the vehicle that is traveling. So such scenarios suddenly erupts. So in such conditions, algorithms must prioritize outcomes which minimizes the harm. At the end, when a scenario happens like this and a decision is taken, the final result should have been given minimal harm, or at least it should protect the passengers, and it should also adhere to the traffic rules. When all these three things are followed, then the decision whatever is taken has fit into a proper framework. So there is something called utility arism, which means that the greatest good for the greatest number. So we have to see that the decision that is taken by the mission has done good for a greater population rather than a smaller population. So such rules must be used to guide such frameworks. A self-driving car must decide whether it should swerve and hit one pedestrian, or serve multiple passengers, or stay in course and risk harming passengers. I'm not saying always saving the passengers would be correct, but what I'm trying to say is a mission should be trained in such a way that which does good at a greater cost must be the ultimate decision. So balancing the safety, legality and ethical responsibility in such situation becomes very important, and the transparency of how this is coded, such decisions must be open to public, or at least to the buyer who has bought this car or who's using this car, must be open and transparent, so that the decision that is taken becomes quite clear. And governments and organization must establish the ethical rules that I had said earlier, especially for this autonomous vehicle. So these 5 things put together will help us choose whether self-driving cars are important, and how the decision hierarchies in emergency conditions are being analyzed would be making us help take a decision on what robotic assisted or autonomous missions are being purchased. I was talking about the data security. So let me look into the privacy and data security that holds or that gets involved in such automated information. See, once I say a self-autonomous or an autonomous instrument, it has huge, enormous data. And without data, a mission cannot become autonomous. It cannot even become semi-autonomous. So when a semi-autonomous instrument itself needs data, imagine a self-autonomous or completely autonomous mission. It will require huge volumes of data, which includes personal data, and it will also take data that is surrounding its from its surrounding. So the data that is collected by the robot, specifically from home assistants and from surveillance robot, etc., is enormous. So what are the problems, or what are the associated factors with this? There would be huge risk of data breaches. If you all remember, if you all just think, when we simply wear a wristwatch, a wrist smartwatch, this is a simple example that I'll give you. When you try to link your watch with your cell phone, with your mobile phone, for example, you use a Samsung mobile and you use a Samsung smartwatch. When you try to link both with Samsung Health app, after you try to after you try to pair it up, and after you try to connect both, at the end there will be a mandatory markup that crops up, which says that I agree to all the terms and conditions associated with this particular thing. This is the basic line that we see everywhere, and without clicking that you cannot pair it. So how many of us actually read what are the terms and conditions? How many of us actually see what third party has the access to this particular information that we are going to transfer to the mobile or to the particular company? We generally don't, because we are very busy, and maybe we believe the manufacturer. So based on trust, or based on our busy schedule, or based on our disinterest, I would say, we just generally click it and move on. But all that we are giving is our data. A simple watch can give variety of data. Let me give you examples of what a watch can transfer data. It can tell your name. It can definitely tell transfer your day-to-day activities, what time you wake up, what time you hit the gym, what time you get ready for your work, what are your schedules, how your professional lineup is scheduled, because it will be definitely linked with your calendar. Where do you travel? Your mobile might not know where you travel if you don't carry it, but if you have your watch, it will definitely know where you stay, how you walk, what is the speed of your general walking technique. So your personal data is given just like that to your to the company, basically, or to the manufacturer. So such risks of data breaches will happen if the proper security is not maintained for the data. And strategies for data protection and user privacy is very, very, very important, because we don't know who can have an access for your data. So the data generally is collected by the robots, as earlier I had said, from healthcare devices, from surveillance, from very sensitive data can be collected. So personal conversations, a simple one daily example I can also suggest: when you talk at your house, in your house, or to your friends about a cafe or about a restaurant that you would like to go, next time when I open YouTube, or next time when I open any Facebook, any social media handles, I find the different restaurants cropping up, advertisements of different restaurants cropping up, or I find Swiggy, Zomato, which indirectly tells you that, okay, it has listened to you. She wants to travel to a restaurant. So either I give her advertisements of the restaurant, or I make her sit at home and I give her the options of having food from her home. So it gets free publicity. It gives us free a choice of suggestion of where I need to travel, or whether you don't travel, you eat at your house. So how does it get such a data? It listens. Smart assistants continuously listens to your personal conversations, and it tries to modify your search engine, and tries to give out advertisements through these social websites, thereby giving you an idea about where you can do, what choice you have. We generally don't relate. What we talk and what we see is somewhere getting mapped. It is only because of the personal conversation smart assistants that keeps recording all these conversations. Our location data, as I said you, we are completely, I would say, drenched in the devices which keeps on noting our location data. A simple mobile phone, yeah, when you track how many steps you walk, it tracks your latitude and your longitude, which says where you travel, how far you have traveled. So your location data is continuously updated in the cloud. The video recordings, the surveillance robots that is present on in the nearby drugstore, or in the nearby theaters, in the nearby I would say malls, all these are having images of you, of where you travel, how you look, how you like to dress up. Every basic information is being transferred that way. Then talking about the health data, medical robots are the health data that is continuously taking in how much is your pulse rate, how much, suppose I hit the gym, obviously my heart rate gets recorded. So such things keep on getting recorded. Each and every individual, or each and every person who keeps on using a simple mobile phone, will have their data continuously ready, or continuously stored. 1 minute. So, talking about what are the risk of data breaches, the data breaches can get exposed, even can expose even a sensitive personal information to different malicious vendors. Unauthorized access can result in privacy violation, which can misuse the personal information. Talking about ethical constraints, we need to ask two questions. When we have a robotic machine, or when we have a robot, who owns the data? is the data that is taken by the robot very securely saved, or is it being transferred to another party? So such things should be asked and we should get an answer. How long will the data be stored? Is it continuously erased, or is it just stored for 3 months, just for 24 hours? Things like that. And who has the access to it? So all these should be our questions when we try to talk about any robotic mission that is present around us. So what are the strategies, or how can the data be protected? Anyway, we know that the data protection is very important. Let me talk about few strategies that is associated with the data protection. There should be a strong encryption, and the cyber security measures should be very, very a strong one, or a very unbreakable one. There should be several privacy regulations that should be followed, which will ensure the compliance, which should ensure the compliance. That is, there are several privacy regulations that can be followed, which includes the GDPR, the CCPA, that is the General Data Protection Regulation, CCPA, things like that, that has to be followed in order to have a safe and non-hackable measures of your private data. Above all, there should be transparency on how data is collected, stored, and it has to be used. So the users must always be informed about how the data is collected, where it is stored, and whom it is given to. So let me talk about the next topic about bias and fairness in AI algorithm. Already I had said there is something called bias in AI algorithm, which means that at times the decision has to be taken in an ethical way with human values, but the algorithm that is written will be rule followed. So the algorithm bias has to be, I'll be explaining about it. I'll just try to share one real life example of how the biased AI system will look like, and how we can how we can ensure fair in AI and robotics. This is a particular area where you have a good scope of analysis. Bias detection tools, because there is a how much ever you try to train a mission, there could be at least a small percentage of bias. So when you try to develop a tool which tries to become more and more sensitive, or more and more error detective, then you try to establish, your field of research becomes good over there, and continuous audits of AI system must be done. My next important topic that I would say in the robotics, self-assisted robotics, is robot-human interaction, HRI, human-robot interaction. We all know HMI, human mission interface. Like that, we have something called as human-robot interaction. When I talk about human mission interface comes, whereas when I talk about human robot interaction comes. What is the difference? Interface means, always when you talk about human and a mission, you talk about just interfacing. That is, you try to speak in the language of the mission, and you try to make the mission work like how you want it to work, based upon programs, based upon coding, etc. It is only an interface because it's related only to a mission. But when you interact, you can interact with two humans, you can interact with the two living beings. So when interaction word comes, it means that the robot becomes learning, it enters the learning phase, or it enters the way of taking a self decision. So that is why it is called as human robot interface. So here we'll see how the ethical treatment is happening to the robots. We will see, is there something called as emotional attachment? We will also see what are the boundaries that is set for the human robot interaction, especially when robots take the position of a caregiver or a company, and things like that. So human robot interaction refers to the study and design of system where robots and human communicate and interact. It can be physical, that is through gestures, it can be through touch, or it can be even virtual, like using voice, like using auditory methods, things like that, or even through the visual signals. So when more and more robots get integrated into daily life, especially in healthcare, in entertainment, etc., I think most of you would have visited hotels or restaurants where robots try to serve food. That we have seen in airports. There are airports where you have robots assisting, where you have robot assistants which takes you till the cab, or where the robots assist you to board a bus outside, and it can speak any language that you want. So like this, you have robots not only in healthcare, in entertainment. You have robots almost everywhere which is assisting you in your day-to-day activities. So such areas you would need to have heavy ethical and effective collaboration. So robots, especially in workplaces, homes, all these try to have a variety of human robot interaction application. So what responsibility occurs in the interaction? It should not exploit, it shouldn't abuse, it shouldn't be mistreated. So all these are the things that humans should not do to the robots. As robots become more and more advanced, they try to gain the capabilities to communicate, respond in a favorite way. It also tries to mimic our sentence and things like that. So once you try to handle it with fair and respect, it tries to reciprocate it because of the learning algorithm. So apart from that, the impact on human behavior, the way how humans treat the robots, as I said, you tries to reflect the attitudes towards the other people. So mistreating or neglection can help a robot to behave in the same way. In the same sense, if there is a good empathy, then the robot also tries to reflect the same empathy what it tries to receive. So when what is the emotional attachment to robots? As robots, earlier when I say robo, it tries to look like a machine which tries to do the work that is being instructed to, and it tries to give us out a result based upon the rules. But as and more we try to get advanced, the robots try to become a more lifelike, more reality. We have seen several movies also coming out on robots which tries to become which tries more to look more like a human, or tries to look mimic the human activities. So we either try to treat them like companion or a pet or a caregiver. We become more emotionally attached to it. So this in turn triggers the robotic ability to exhibit the same human like behavior, such as responding to voices, making eye contacts, etc. So this also gives some psychological impacts, like have more robotic interaction over mentally and emotionally attached to them. So this growing attachment to robots also tries to present few ethical questions, like, is it okay to have a relationship of having with a robot like much like a companion or much like a caregiver? Is it okay? Can it manipulate you? Can it does somebody get a commercial? All these are the ethical dilemmas that is associated once we have an emotional attachment with the robot. Talking about the uh, role of robots in the ethical caregiving. Robots are increasingly using several roles, such as caregivers. You won't believe that most of the robots are used in caregiving techniques. So, like for assistive surgery, for especially for elderly and disabled, it also tries to promote help in their daily activities. It gives emotional support. It increases the quality of care. So day by day we find that the role of robots is increasing in medical, in caregiving, in companionship, etc. So where do you set a boundary when ethics has framed the guidelines for autonomous system, which ensures that there is highly ethical and responsible, especially in activities? So this autonomous system promotes safety, transparency, accountability, and it, at the end, it should have the societal benefits. The key principles are The IEEE ethics of autonomous system has looked into the human well-being. It looks into the transparency and accountability. It looks into the fairness and non-discrimination. It also looks into the privacy and data protection. And above all, we all know we are moving towards sustainability. Sustainable at the end, we try to design a system, or we try to devise a system where you will have where it offers sustainability, which gives a positive social and societal impact and less energy consumption. So these are the principles that is used in the ethical frameworks. Generally, there are three laws of robotics. That is it is called as the Asimov's three laws. The first law is a robot should not injure a human through an inaction, and it should ensure that the human is not injured. The second law is it should obey the orders given, but it should also by the humans, except where the laws should not be affected by the first law. The third law is its own existence must be protected, and it should not be affected by the first and second law. These are the three basic laws that generally serves as a guideline at the basic when a robot or a robotic machine is developed. So what are the future ethical challenges that we have? When we try to integrate the robots in our day-to-day life, there are several ethical challenges that comes into picture. When a robot is used for a military or a combat, then important ethical challenges are huge over there, because at the end it is a war zone, and ethics must be followed, especially in the area of military, and when robots are used for fighting or for a combat. Employment, this is a very, very important topic that I would like to talk about. When there are more robots that is trying to replace humans, there is a lot of displacement of employment. There are huge see, one robot can replace 10 members, 20 members, hundreds of members, thousands of members, depends upon the quality and the efficiency of the robot. So ultimately, what are we doing? We are trying to reduce the employment. There can be several unemployment issues that crops up. This will in turn lead to societal inequality. So when a robot is developed, it should be developed in such a way that the hard manual jobs can be replaced, but day-to-day jobs which fetches employment should not be disturbed massively by the evolvement of robots or the robotic machines. So the robots, as the same thing as I had said over here, when robots are there in our day-to-day life, we have the robotic assistants, we have the healthcare, we have transportations, all these getting involved. And when we talk about the challenges that is involved in this, we should be ready to face the several resistance of us. Everybody cannot widely with open arm accept a robot in the place of a human. So public trust is very, very important, especially when a robot is trying to replace somewhere a human intervention. There should be social and ethical consideration that should be taken into look, and there should be good education of how a robot will act in a particular scenario to the entire public, because I was talking about the transparency, etc. So this will help people have a good perception on how to take a robot in a day-to-day life. This is what I was saying. When you have an unmanned aerial vehicle, there are drones, there are several unmanned strikers. So such things are applications of military and combat robots. So you also have autonomous ground vehicles, where you have tanks, where you have unassisted bomb disposal units. So such things are the examples of autonomous ground vehicles. So these are the examples used in a combat and military domain. As I had earlier said, when we use them in a warfare, there is a high ethical constraint that we need to look, because they are going to make life and death decisions. They should be held accountable for, and generally robots will make warfare less human intervention, which will have a potential lower risk of human getting affected. So employment and displacement, social inequality, as I said you, when robot tries to make replace humans, wealthier countries and industries, individuals have a better access to advanced robots, which will make the lower income group a disadvantage. This will in turn create an economical disparity, and high skilled workers may benefit from robots, but low skilled workers will tend to get displaced, or they tend to be removed, which will cause a social inequality. So what is the solution, or what are the suggestions that is being given over here? There should be a universal basic income which ensures that there are less job losses, and there should be an awareness that is given in such a way that anybody can easily work with the robots. There should be society safety nets which sees to that unemployment people are getting benefited, or there is a lower rate of unemployment, healthcare is properly given, and there should be inclusive technical development. This is a very important point because it ensures that the development and deployment of robots are done to prioritize equity rather than equality. Equity is made prioritized here, and there should be inclusivity so that there is no social inequality. So these are the basic things that I would like to discuss. I am open to questions or suggestions, or any particular domain that you would like me to address upon. I'm open for your questions.
Now we will move on to the Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to address the audience's questions. To our attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box or raise your hand to speak. We will try to address as many questions as time permits.